So this is we're doing a morning call today, and I decided to warm up on this chilly November morning with our recently brewed Sumatra. I think that's my favorite dark roast that I get at the local store. So we're enjoying that as we speak to get the morning off correctly. How about you?
Do they offer a Karma Sumatra over there?
I see what you
Or is it just you see what? Or is it just a straight Sumatra? Welcome to this episode of the Cool Dad Shirt Podcast.
now with 10% more bits. That's what you get, my friend. Yes, what do you got?
To drink?
Yeah, you enjoying something this morning?
Well, I had some coffee earlier on, so right now, for the benefit of my voice, I'm just drinking some water, some room temperature water, as all the professional podcasters do, Rich.
Ah, okay. Well, good. Well, we're off to a great start then.
Yeah. Let's see how the podcast goes before we start complimenting my room temperature water here.
Well, we've mastered that part. So on to the content.
Yeah. So with Halloween just behind us, I was wondering if you have a particular favorite candy bar that you like to purchase for the kiddies on Halloween in hopes that you'll have some leftovers.
I hate to sound like a wet blanket. I have tried so hard to just not eat candy anymore. So I make a point I bought it the day before Halloween, so there's nothing in the house. There's no temptation. I will admit I think I did have a couple Reese's peanut butter cups after the fact, and then promptly poured the rest in the garbage. I cannot, which wasn't much. We've got a ton of kids here.
You threw them out?
I feel guilty making my coworkers fat. So
I was going to say, a lot of people just haul that stuff into the office, and
they did. There was just a handful left. I'm like, I'm not carting this in, and contributing to the diabetic problem. I don't know. I get weird about candy. These days, I occasionally have a piece of dark chocolate, and that's about my candy intake.
All right. Well, it's amazing how popular the Reese's peanut butter cup is.
They really did crack the code with chocolate and peanut butter, and somehow putting it into a fun shape. It's got like a rigidity to it. It's got a nice feel as you bite into it. Yeah, the spiky edges and the dual wrapping. They have their own little cup in a cup. It's part of the charm.
It's nice. It is part of the charm. How about the old whatchamacallit? Remember that one?
I do remember that. It was kind of crunchy, right? Didn't it have like toasted rice or something in there? Crunchy something?
Yeah, it was almost like a Nestle Crunch bar on steroids, right?
Exactly, yes.
It had that same ricey crunch to it. So I enjoyed that one. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. I also like the 100 grams. Have you had one of those? Those had a little rice in it as well.
It had the crunch, but it had like super gooey caramel too, right? Didn't it?
Yeah, that would rip out a crown in a second.
Oh, yeah. It's just like strings hanging off your face, fillings popping out. Pure delight.
Yeah, deliciously satisfying. So anyway, that was the end of the candy right into the garbage. I'm sorry, Rich.
Yeah, well, I figured it was, I don't know what I figured. How about you? Do you engineer it for assumed leftovers?
We don't overbuy, so we have leftovers, but naturally, we get the stuff that we do enjoy or the stuff that we know others enjoy. So if there are leftovers, it's not stuff that we absolutely hate. So we definitely have some Reese's peanut butter cups left over, and we also have some Kit Kats left over, which are also very tasty.
You can't go
But
wrong
again,
with Kit Kat.
in moderation, Rich.
Of
All
course.
in moderation.
Everything in moderation, yes.
And smaller sizes. It's not like we were handing out the full-size candy bars.
Yeah, you were properly in fun size camp.
Oh, yeah, we don't.
Of course,
We're not ballers. We're not ballers over here on Halloween.
That doesn't give you permission to eat 27 fun sizes. That's no longer fun.
Yeah, let's think about that for a second. Psychologically, if you ate one candy bar, is that better or worse than eating 27 fun sizes? There is a level of satisfaction in terms of quantity, right? So calorically, if you eat 4 fun sizes, is that still less than eating 1 full size in terms of caloric intake?
Yeah, I don't know what the exact ratio is, but clearly it's a conspiracy.
Yeah. It does feel good to open 4 wrappers, though, doesn't it?
or sad, and then you just have to rationalize in your head. No, they're really small. They are small.
They are really small. My wife bought these cookies last week. I don't know if they're from like a Trader Joe's or like a Lidl. They're like these like really crispy, crunchy, like apple-y cookies. I wouldn't say they're healthy for you, but they're not horrible. Low sugar, not a lot of calories. They're really tasty, and I find myself often grabbing a couple anytime I walk into the kitchen. So my wife walks into the kitchen the other night, and she said, "Oh, I'm going to have a couple of these. Can I get you some?" And I said, No. And she said, "Oh, come on, they're really not that bad for you." And I said, "I've already had 8 today, so so I can't have any more." But they're really tasty.
That's funny. Yeah. 8. I draw a hard line at 8.
That's my threshold for those cookies. 8.
I think in my younger years, I think I'm ashamed to say it, and probably more than once. I think, and this is like really young. I think I've consumed an entire sleeve of Girl Scout Thin Mints once.
Oh, yeah. When you're a kid, you can consume an entire sleeve of any cookie out there. Chips Ahoy, Oreos, those peanut buttery Girl Scout cookies.
Yeah.
Do-si-dos. I don't know what they are, but yeah, I mean, a sleeve was the normal size portion when you were a kid.
Well, you recognize that as a serving size, really.
Yes, that's what it says
why else would they package it like that?
Yeah, number of cookies in box, 48. Serving size is 2.
Oh, man.
It's very common. Provided your mother had at least a half a gallon of milk for you to enjoy and dunk them in.
Yes.
Hey, do you remember as a kid having to hold the flashlight for your dad? Do you remember those experiences?
Holy cow, yes.
I feel like kids today don't know that experience. It was a real common thing, like hold this for your dad. And it seemed like you were holding that thing for an hour and a half. Your arm would be cramping up. And every 2 seconds, you'd get distracted. Your arm would drift away. And the next thing you know, your dad's grabbing your arm to reposition the flashlight because you're holding it 2 inches from his retina.
Yes.
He's blinded by the Duracell flashlight.
And I was also, even as a child, I remember, how can I not focus for more than 10 seconds? Literally, I have one job and to point it on that hex nut, and I can't even keep it there.
It's a simple repair. All he needs is 5 minutes of your time. And all I'm thinking is, I just want to be done with this so I can go back into my room and listen to Kiss.
That's right. There's a sleeve of cookies waiting for me.
Yeah, Dad, can we wrap this up, please? Please. Yeah, it seemed like hours, and maybe it was, but it seemed like hours. And it would never work out. The nut would never come off. There was always some sort of liquid wrench involved.
Yeah.
Some swearing, some bloody knuckles, and you'd be locked on that flashlight, just hoping the whole exercise would end soon.
Well, a lot has happened in our generation. They have those, I actually have one of the little headsets you can put an LED light on your own, so you can make sure it's always pointed. You don't need a kid to help you out with stuff like that. Your phone always has a light on it. You can kind of just prop it up against something.
Yeah.
So I think just another change in the way things work.
So I guess the broader question is, has technology eliminated our kids from that equation, right? Even if they had one of those lights that attached to your head, I could never imagine my dad, positioning one of those things to go in and tackle this do-it-yourselfer task by himself.
I think you're right. I think kids don't even realize how they've missed out on one of those rites of passage of getting chastised.
It is.
For a short attention span.
They should be a lot more thankful for that pesky flashlight built into their iPhones.
Yeah, and they got magnets on lights now too with the little LED ones. You don't need 7 D size batteries to illuminate something anymore.
That is true.
And so you can just tack a little magnet up there, light, and do it yourself. So yeah.
Yeah, we used to have one of those flashlights. It was just the giant bulb and the little attachment piece that you would screw into that giant battery that was like the size of a car battery.
Yes.
It had the 2 contact points on the top that were threaded, and you would put the handle over that and screw the 2 little nuts in, and the thing would weigh like 18 pounds, and you would have to hold that.
No wonder you couldn't hold it steady.
No wonder. I mean, I'm 6. This thing weighs 19 pounds. What do you expect? It's attached to a car battery. Did you go to many carnivals as a kid? Like, that's another thing that...
there was always
like the local firemen's carnival.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. There was one where I grew up, and that was kind of an annual event that my parents would take me to as a youngster. And then, of course, when you hit your teenage years, you definitely did not want your parents there because you were just kind of hanging out with your buddies and, spending money on dumb stuff. But yeah, that was kind of a grown up thing.
I was thinking about the prizes they used to offer those. Do you remember some of the prizes?
Yeah, lots of stuffed animals, right? What?
Yep. Stuffed animals. Anything else come to mind?
I'm drawing a blank at the moment.
Well, I was going through the list, and I remember there was always the booths that had some stuffed animals, and they had a range of size. But I also remember there were so many booths that had rock band mirrors. Or beer mirrors. Do you remember everything was like a beer mirror or a roach clip? Like those were the prizes you won at the carnival as like, a 10 or 11-year-old. Like, you would throw the dart, pop 9 balloons, and you had your choice between a fog hat mirror, a roach clip, or one of those stretched curved soda bottles. Do you remember those? The 7-Up stretched curved soda bottle. It was like 18 or 20 inches tall. The thing would barely balance. It was something that, one little brush of the arm and that thing was coming off your shelf and shattering into thousands of pieces. Those are what I call to be the big prizes.
I remember, yeah, especially the mirrors. You're right. It was beer or classic rock. I guess it wasn't classic rock back then, but yeah.
They were funny too because they were all bands like you knew of, but I mean, something that you definitely weren't listening to as a 10-year-old, Oh, and they also had those booths where you could win cigarettes too. Like that was another thing. You could win a carton of cigarettes.
Yeah, kids today have no idea how prevalent smoking was back then. I mean, I think our generation was the first one to be like, smoking really isn't good for you and you probably shouldn't do it. I think we generally got that, and the kids who did it, they were kind of the rebels and stuff like that. The previous generation, of course, embraced it entirely. But no, it was just a culture. There was a smoking area at my high school.
Yeah. For us, there was one too, but it was kind of outside behind the building.
Yeah.
Thankfully I've never smoked or tried, but I remember how prevalent it was. And maybe the fact that I was surrounded by so much of it, it acted as a deterrent for me because my parents smoked continuously in the house, and I had friends that smoked. It was very unappealing to me from a very young age, and I was very bothered by, the smell of it. I don't know if that was, what turned me away, but thankfully I never started or had any interest.
But no, there's definitely aversion therapy going on. I remember a pile of us kids, both my parents smoked way back in the day. They eventually quit, but for a long stretch there, yeah, you were in this gigantic Pontiac. It was wintertime, so the windows, so you're floating on this, 1970s station wagon, getting seasick with 2 people smoking in the car. Yeah, that'll fix you good.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember the same experience. The windows sealed tight, stop smoking, and they had those built-in little ashtrays in the car that would be loaded up with butts and ashes.
Right to the top. Yes.
How disgusting.
You take a strong right turn and they'd come tumbling out onto the floor.
I also remember sitting in the back, and when the ashtray was full, my parents would resort to flicking the ashes out the window, except in the back seat, the ashes never went out the window. The wind from the tiny little crack in the window would just blow those ashes into the back seat all over my face and body.
Yes.
I'd get out of the car and have to brush myself off. It's no wonder I'm so angry.
That explains a lot. Speaking of parents, things we're taking a different role in life as they get on in years. And my mother turned 80 just a few weeks ago, and so she came up to my sister's house in Washington, D.C. A bunch of us went down there to hang out, and it was just such a great time. But my mother pulled me aside at one point and said, "Hey, take a picture of this card." I said, "What?" She's like, "It's an important card. Just take a picture of this. I gave my last one to your sister." And I said, "Well, what is it?" And she's like, "Well, if I die, just call this number. They come and get the body. They send it straight to the crematorium. You don't have to do anything." And I was like, "This is not where I thought this was going." And I said, "Oh, okay, well, that's good to know." I said, "It's your last card. You just giving these out to everybody?" She's like, "Well, when I stay places, I just want people to know they don't have to think about stuff." I said, "Okay, you're not like, if the oil change is taking too long, you don't like toss this out on the counter and be like, let's wrap this up, or we're gonna have to make some phone calls." No, nothing like that. And I said, she said, well, I just, I want to make sure you guys know everything is taken care of. There's nothing to worry about. Your father and I are making sure everything is in order. I said, Mom, you've given me so much in life. I appreciate all these things. And I said, the one thing I definitely want you to know, and I looked her in the eye and I said, this is definitely going on the podcast.
Happy birthday, Mom.
Happy birthday, Mom. So yes, thank you for taking care of all the unpleasantries for us already.
Thank you for the prepaid Uber card.
Yes. The body's over there. Just take it.
Yes. I mean, does this work in any location?
I think it's a network. It's agreed to. Yeah, they just
Wow.
The way it was explained, don't worry about it. They, like Men in Black, they just show up, take care of business, and disappear.
It's amazing, like when you do get to that point, that pre-planning just seems very, I don't know, natural. I don't know what, I don't have the right words, but.
Oh, it was tremendous. It was very loving, and
Yeah.
They put the time in to think of their own mortality and make it easy for us. So, yeah, it's great.
Geez, coming off that, I don't know where to segue, Rich.
Okay.
I mean,
right to the end.
It started off as a very nice happy birthday tribute to your mom, and it went dark very quick with, I don't want to disturb your plans or mess up your party, Rich, so just continue on, and they'll come in and
it's prepaid.
take care of all the arrangements for me. You don't even have to tip the driver. It's already included.
That's the gratuity is included. Yeah.
Gratuity, yes. Automatically added gratuity, 18%.
Oh, that's good stuff. On a previous episode, this is a horrible segue, but you had mentioned one of the big popular fads of taking these ice plunges.
Yes.
And I'm totally fascinated by that. And it just kind of keeps popping up, and maybe because I'm becoming more health conscious, it's showing up everywhere. And I'm so intrigued and I want to do it, but it sounds completely and totally unpleasant to do. Have you tried it yet?
I have not plunged into an actual tank. What I do is I try to turn the shower water as cold as it can go and see how long I can stand in there. And I think we joked on the podcast, I do that more in the summer to train myself for that ocean water so I can, get to the beach and have some sort of better tolerance for the cold water. But there are, like you said, there's tremendous health benefits to those ice plunges or those cold plunges. So I've gotten as far as cold as the water can go in the shower for maybe 30 seconds.
Yeah, and they say it doesn't have to be an ice bath like when you see some of these guys do it, but if you submerge yourself in a tub, and I did this, like summertime, I do like that also. You crank it down, it just feels good anyway. But like in the wintertime, just climbing into I think that your tap water is like 52, 57 degrees. I don't know what it is, but to sit in that for many minutes, I think is the recommendation is I can't bring myself to do it.
It definitely takes some time to work through that and be able to withstand that for a few minutes.
Yeah, have you? The thing that caught my eye, my most recent interest, they actually explained physiologically. Some guy was saying, like, as soon as you hit that shock, your liver pushes all these proteins out in your system. You get this vasoconstriction. All the blood goes to your heart and brain. Like all these chemical things happen that are supposed to be super anti-inflammatory and healing. And then, of course, when you get out and you start warming up again, everything kind of get the vasodilation, all the blood goes back to the rest of your body. You're supposed to feel invigorated, but I've not been able to pull the trigger on that yet.
Yeah, it's tough. I watched a video of someone somewhat local to the area. I know we mentioned this as well, but he swims in the Sound all year round. He'll put on some rather everyday clothes, jog down to the Sound, swim, dry up, put some clothes back on, and then make his way back home.
I have no more topics.
You okay there, buddy? All right?
No, I was looking. I got a couple of Post-it notes here, and yeah, I'm out.
I'm not sure what's happening over there. You didn't like my story, or I know you've heard it before. I mean, I'll move on. I mean, you're the one that brought up the ice plunge. I'm just trying to up the show. You've lost interest in your own topic, Rich. I mean, you introduce the topic and then suddenly, I try to interject, keep it moving. And
once again, I can't hold the light on the hex bolt.
The Cool Dad Shirt podcast is marginally entertaining, sometimes funny, and strangely appealing to hot moms.
I was thinking of a favorite kid toy of mine. We touched on some of these. Of course, Evel Knievel always rates as the number one kid toy. We talked about some erector sets. I mean, lots of cool stuff. I can't believe I forgot to bring this one up. And as an engineer, you probably enjoyed many of these. Do you remember the white and red water rockets? It was a white rocket with a red tank on the top. And you would, with this tiny funnel it came with that was also in red, you'd fill it up with water and you would put it on this little pump.
Right? Yep.
And you would lock it in and pump that thing up as tight as you can get it and then quickly pull back that little release lever and that thing would shoot up pretty high into the sky just from the pressure of air and water coming out of the tail end.
I do. I couldn't follow you at the beginning, but yes, the pumping, the water in the pump, I do remember. Yes.
Yeah, I can't believe I had forgotten about those until recently, but that was an awesome toy that actually really shot pretty high. It seemed pretty dangerous too, now that you think about it. Yeah, that thing, I remember launching that thing higher than the tree line.
It was, yes, yeah, it was real. It's amazing that it's no longer. Some lawsuits must have killed that.
I'm surprised how amazing that glue or adhesive was that held the red water tank onto the white body, because you put a fair amount of pressure in there between the water and the air. I mean, by the end of it, you couldn't put any more air in that thing. The pump would be unmovable because it was so tight with pressure. I'm surprised that the glue held.
It would max out. Yeah. I don't know how they figured it all out, but a little engineering genius toy they came up with.
Thank the folks at Hasbro. I don't know if it was a Hasbro, but Coleco, Hasbro. What were the other toy manufacturers? Games are all Milton Bradley.
Milton, yeah.
Hasbro, Coleco. I don't know who made that one.
I don't know.
Rich, I got so many more topics here. Should I go on?
Yeah, fire one.
This one came to mind the other day. My dad still has an AOL email address.
I actually have a friend who's our age who has an AOL address. I'm hoping they updated some stuff and they're still not on a modem.
I don't know what happens. I'm hoping that he's not paying for any service, but he has an AOL email address. And I remember on some of the first computers that I started getting, that stuff you had to load. It was on a little floppy disk, and then it made its way to like a CD. And then a huge selling point back in the day was when you purchased a computer and AOL was already pre-installed.
That's right.
There was always that sticker on the front of the computer letting you know that this massive computing machine already has the power of AOL Online built in. So there'd be no need for any installs.
Yeah, and actually, you and I lived together right when this all happened. I remember.
We sure did.
Did we talk about this before? I don't know if we did it on the podcast, but yeah, there was. The phone was dominated by whomever was on the computer at the moment, and that was funny. Yep.
Yeah, there was AOL, Prodigy, and Netscape. Those were the three big. I don't remember. I suspect they could all communicate. So if you were an AOL user, you could communicate with someone on Prodigy, right? I don't remember. I think they were just sort of the provider, right?
I think if you went online, you could of course interface, but and then you had an email associated with each of those. But now that you say that, there was like limitations or something. I can't remember that you couldn't cross over. You were kind of boxed into something that I can't remember how that worked.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if it was those chat rooms.
Oh, maybe that's what it was.
Maybe you could get to the internet, but the chat rooms were based on your provider.
I think So long before we had social media and all this other stuff, there were chat rooms and bulletin boards, and I think they were contained to the platform that you signed up for. Yeah.
So I can't remember. Was Netscape a platform or just a web browser?
I think Netscape was just a browser, I believe. And they were like super cool out of the gate, and then they were promptly killed off by, I think, Internet Explorer, right? Microsoft?
Maybe. They were a very nice browser. I remember they had a lot of advanced features and a nice looking GUI.
I don't know what they did wrong, but they rose to the top and then vanished.
They were the browser. So if you need to get to my dad, you can look for him at AOL.
I'll search out.
He's in a chat room near you.
Hey, do you still have your MySpace account?
I got to look. I haven't logged on in a couple weeks. Let me see if it's still
Popped in my head, but I've not gone to look
available.
for my own.
Who was the big dude on MySpace? What was that guy's name?
Oh,
Tom? Was it Tom?
And it was a terrible picture. Was he like looking over his shoulder or
He was
something?
looking over his shoulder. He had like curly hair.
And he's just like regular guy. No, I'm just like you. I am
was
just like you.
It was like if Justin Timberlake was a regular dude. That was him.
That look on his face like he just said, "Hey, Tom," and he turned around.
I think that was his name. MySpace. We haven't talked about some of the low-hanging fruit, so I'm going to go for it, Rich.
Yeah.
Christopher Walken, Foo Fighters, Saturday night. We'll get to the Foo Fighters performance in a minute, but let's talk about Christopher Walken's performance.
So
Did you see it?
I just saw the little clip of him reintroduce it. Was there more to it or just his intro to the band?
No, just his intro. There's, we don't need to get too detailed about it, but yeah, just his intro.
He had a redo, right? That was the joke.
Yeah, the 20-year redo. It was delivered very much like Christopher Walken, yet very different from the last time. If I had to pick, I love the original one with the accent on fighters. He overemphasized the foo this time, but in his usual very endearing Christopher Walken sort of way.
Well, and that's how you know somebody is an institution, that no matter what they do differently. Yeah, I read this thing. Eric Johnson is one of my favorite guitar players, and someone said Eric Johnson could pick up an out-of-tune ukulele and play it, and you would still know it was him playing it. And so I attribute that also to somebody like Christopher Walken, who even intentionally tried to change his own style, and yet it's still very much him.
Yeah, it was uncomfortably delightful.
Yes.
Times Magazine raves. Christopher Walken was uncomfortably delightful.
Kind of like our podcast.
Exactly. Yes. Foo Fighters. And the Foo Fighters were great as usual.
Yeah, they always deliver.
So while we're talking about music, any thoughts on new Beatles releases and new Rolling Stones releases?
I know it's all the rage. I think it's super interesting. Now, one of those bands is actually currently making music. And the other band is being constructed from old stuff. That's kind of interesting also, since half that band is dead. But it's interesting. And I like that people, it shows the enduring genius of both of those groups and what they've been able to do. So, yeah, it's good stuff. It's enjoyable.
It's interesting that the Beatles embraced the AI technology for themselves.
Yes.
We spoke in the past about other people using AI to make songs using other artists' voice.
Yeah, and I think AI is an interesting thing that I don't think we fully understand the power of quite yet. But when it's used to enhance or embellish your own experience, I think there's something kind of wonderful about that. I remember having a conversation with my brother, and he was talking about, well, if you look at it like playing chess, if you could use a computer or AI, it can do all the permutations, the calculations, and give you a wealth of stuff that your brain just does not have access to. But coupled with your ability to read the room, look at the player across from you, and the intuition, you can balance these things to really maximize human potential. I think that's a great use of it. And likewise, if the Beatles were all on board with bringing all this back to life, I think that's super cool. But like you said before, people who are just throwing samples into a computer, turning a crank and making hit songs, it's like that just feels really artificial.
The Stones did it all themselves. No AI.
Yeah. Still kicking.
Still doing it. They got to be in their 80s, right?
I'm thinking, yeah. And they lost Charlie Watts a year or two ago, right?
Yep.
Keith Richards, he's probably good for another 100 years.
Man, oh man. Still plays well.
He's hanging in there.
I watched a video the other day of this 94-year-old guy bowling. Man, he was an energetic guy.
Really?
Yeah. He gets up the lane, throws a strike, comes back. They're like, Harry, how old are you? 94. He looked like he was, 76.
He didn't look a day over 76.
He was probably a fake video. Now that I think about it, the dude probably was only 77. He's like, I'm 94. And it's like viral.
Yeah.
Here I am falling for it. I'm like, that old guy was so cool and so strong at 94. I want to be just like him.
Yeah, tomorrow he's back at work at UPS. All his friends are busting on him.
Yeah. 497,000 views.
Yeah, I don't believe anything on the internet anymore.
No, but I'm pulled in. You know, I'm a sucker for some of that stuff.
Oh yeah.
I'm a total sucker.
How could you not be? I just, my default position is everything is fake, and then I go from there. Not to say I can't enjoy it, but
Yeah, it's entertainment purposes, non-educational. Cruising through my list here, Rich. I think those were all the most recent topics I had on the list.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. I really should be more prepared. We've been so consumed with our last episode. I've been kind of focused on that.
Yeah, I agree.
Did you have a chance to sample the rest of or try some more? Have you changed your mind on or developed an opinion on some of the other samples that we had from the previous week?
Audio samples or whiskey samples?
Whiskey samples.
No, this week has flown by. Super, super busy with work and just trying to tackle the editing of this podcast. I think Dan was talking about another meet. Did you happen to attend or?
It's actually tonight. I'm not going to be attending.
Oh, the 4th. He did say the 4th.
Yeah, it's tonight.
I'm sorry, Rich.
No, it's okay.
Prior engagements. or were they planning on hosting it at your house? That's why you can't attend.
That's right. Put an end to that immediately.
He was talking about a real nice meal and then some sampling.
Well, it's always on the host to prepare the meal. I mean, it's a fair amount of effort to make that happen, and it's done right. I mean, especially now he's got it down to a science. Even though different people, it's a rotating place.
Yeah,
everybody kind of understands the deal, how it goes, and yeah,
that's nice. Okay. Yeah, that's nice.
I'll get to one of them eventually,
as long as it ain't at your house.
Yeah, my house is small.
No, you got a nice place, Rich. It's just one giant podcasting studio, though. Now you can't have people wandering around, tripping on a cord, or touching the equipment.
Oh yeah, like SNL, those guys they talk about recording in 8H. I'm just going to put different numbers and letters on the doors of my house. We're headed over to.
Your kids come home from college. They're like, Dad, why does my bedroom say Studio 8H?
Oh, actually, that's not your room anymore. You are now in J7.
We moved you downstairs. That'd be great. You can do that to my kids' bedrooms.
God, there's a lot of lighting in here.
Yeah, your family comes over. Oh, I've been doing a lot of renovations. Let me give you a tour. This is master control room.
Don't touch the knobs, damn it.
Yeah. This is the editing booth.
Let
me take you into the live studio.
Clap your hands. No, clap your hands. Listen to the reverb in this room.
We parked in front of the garage. That's not the garage. That's the loading deck.
That's it. You need to get out pronto. I got a huge delivery coming.
Read the signs. No parking. I just want to bounce back. I feel like we breezed over your mom there. Did you have a nice birthday celebration for her?
It was great. It was not a big production. We got together in Washington, D.C., and it was just a nice quiet time. The weather was spectacular, so lots of walks. My mom's still hanging in there pretty well, so we got to spend some quality time, have some good chats, and lots of laughs.
Some cake, some festivities, all the usual.
Yeah. Out to dinner one night. Yeah, all the good stuff.
That's nice. That's great.
Time well spent. Yep.
Yeah.
And I learned about cremation cards.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Who knew there was such a thing?
Well, listen, this is the public service we're giving to all of our listeners. Make sure you talk to your parents about making it easy to get rid of the body.
While it's a difficult topic to discuss, from a parenting standpoint, I think relieving you of some of that burden provides some comfort to them,
Yeah, it's a tough subject to talk about, but it is peace of mind that it can be simpler and you can control costs and make things go as well as, that time in life can go.
Yeah. And now for something more happy.
We'll be right back.
We'll be and we'll be right back.
One topic, I got no material, just popped into my head when you mentioned AOL earlier and email and stuff like that. Did you ever have an email address, something you wrote that you thought was kind of funny, and then you had to apply for a job and it was something completely ridiculous?
I have a friend of mine that still uses his email address,
Oh,
and
no.
it's unbelievably inappropriate. And he gives the thing out like it's, first name dot last name at gmail.com. It's highly inappropriate.
We can't even say it on the podcast.
Well, I mean, I guess I could say it. I'm not going to say it.
No, because he's going to start getting emails.
He's going to get emails. Yeah, he's going to get a ton of emails. All 6 of our listeners are going to immediately spam him.
Yes, he'll be overwhelmed.
But yes, he has a very inappropriate email address and mentions it, and doesn't batter an eye. And people are, jotting it down. Oh, where can I reach you at? Okay.
I think
Is that capital R?
I had a friend coming out of college, and his email address was "Who's your daddy at Yahoo."
The fact that it's at Yahoo is even funnier too.
Yes. You can imagine applying for jobs. He couldn't figure out why he kept getting rejected out of the gate.
Yeah. Yeah, he still uses it today. I don't think it's at AOL. This a friend of ours, Chris, and I don't know who the provider is, but yeah, he's still that's his main email address.
Go to.
Yeah. I remember back in the days, you had like 5 or 6 chances to come up with something crafty, and then they would automatically default you some crazy name that was a combination of your letters and numbers. So I was like, oh, great. Not only do I got to remember that, I got to tell my friends.
Was it 172 or 271? I can't. I don't even know. I can't remember.
It was amazing anybody got in touch with you with having to remember that.
I was along the same lines. I roommated right straight out of college. This is before I met you. I lived in downtown Albany with one of my friends that I was a roommate with, my close friend Paul, and we lived in the Pine Hills section of Albany, which is kind of okay when you're 22, but these days it's a little kind of a borderline neighborhood. And so we decided to move out to the suburbs. We were going out to Guilderland, and I recall.
Country.
I don't think I even discovered. I think Paul found out about 2 weeks before we were leaving that our phone number spelled Game Boy, and said, "Oh, we got to try to keep that number when we go to our new place because it's cool and it's Game Boy." So I called the phone company and I said, "Well, we have a number that we like. We're moving to a different area. Can we keep it?" "Oh yeah. It's going to cost you. You need a special number. It's going to cost you money." I was like, is it worth? I don't know. Was it worth $20 to spend or something like that to keep the number? And we decided it definitely was worth $20 to keep the number, except that it was a recurring monthly fee to have a custom phone number.
Oh, and like a vanity plate.
Yeah. Yes. So it was on your bill every month to have requested a special business account with a custom number or something. So at that point, being just out of college and not having the funds to do something that stupid, we elected not to continue.
Oh man. I mean, nowadays you think they could just port that over simply, but if there's an angle to make some extra money, they'll certainly capitalize on that.
Yeah, and that was 1991. It was an entirely
back in the
different deal.
day.
It just I felt bad that 2 weeks we realized for 2 weeks that we had a cool spelling phone number.
Stop me if we spoke about this. I thought of an outstanding. Well, I didn't think of it. I witnessed an outstanding exercise activity for seniors. So I was at my dad's house. There was a fly in the kitchen, and it had been bothering my dad. And the whole time I was there, he was actively trying to catch this fly. Did I talk about this?
No.
So not only while he was sitting down was he trying to catch it in his hand or swat it, there was points that he was wandering around the kitchen, with some rolled up newspapers, swatting at it and trying to kill it. And I thought, my dad's older and doesn't get a lot of physical activity, so this is a brilliant exercise for him. Not only is it enhancing hand-eye coordination, he's walking around, he's swinging his arms. Who's to say, if I didn't show up and let a couple flies loose in his house, that I wouldn't be providing a benefit to his health?
You're trying to get through some Medicaid paperwork, and he's completely obsessed with.
I mean, he was focused on getting this thing. It was really bothering him, yet he was elevating his heart rate, moving his legs around, working on some upper body strength.
You might be onto something. Well, that engagement is so important. The worst thing you can do as you age is to kind of check out and not do things. So
Yeah.
you might be onto something there. You might be
Got him
onto
off the couch. It got him off the couch. I think that does it for me, Rich. I think I'm out of my list items.
Yeah, we got some funny stuff in at the end too. I'm glad we.
Yeah, the rest was just so boring and yucky. Thank goodness we got something salvageable at the end. Yeah,
all right.
that's all I got, man. Yeah, I might shoot you a text and try to dial in on a quick call while I'm away.
Oh, yeah, maybe we can do that. That sounds
As a
good.
little like 10 or 15 minute, check-in from someplace. A bit, yeah.
Yeah, we got bits now.
We got so much material, we can do bits now.
now with 10% more bits.
It's so funny. 10%. Such a definitive measure. Who's to say, though, honestly? You could have went with 15. Who's going to argue?
Now I'm regretting not saying 11.
You'd have to add up the minutes of all our shows and then divide them by the minutes of the bit to really find out what the true percentage is.
Yeah, you're all over Power BI, right? This is right up your alley.
Yeah, I'm going to load it. We'll get some visuals posted for our listeners.
And folks, you can see right here. Here's the tipping point. See, right there. There it is.
That's it. That's the more bits.
It was early November 20. There you go. There it is.
All right. Well, I'll probably give you a quick call before I head out. Otherwise, have a great day. Great catching up as always.
Yeah, can't wait for what's next.